What is up, fellow tubers? So check this out. There was a review on my Etsy. People were saying that the wands are covered in hair. And I can see where they get that mistake from. It's actually wood shavings from the carving process. It does not affect the wand's quality, nor does it affect the wand's power. Just wanted to clarify that with you. I've done several reviews, I guess, review responses, whatever you want to call them. People would buy my wands, give them like a 2-star rating, and leave some BS comment. As a business owner, you're going to encounter this kind of thing, so the only thing you can do is be as professional as you possibly can. And it sucks because nobody likes to deal with it. But at the end of the day, you can say, you know what, I'm making an honest dollar doing something for myself. So, fuck what the haters think. And for that matter, fuck my temper. I went and had a soak in a hot tub and I walked home in the rain afterwards. That's just what I needed to relax and, you know. I hate being a perfectionist, and then when I get hungry on top of it, I get very cranky, and that's just not necessary. I got some more wands being made as we speak. These are the ones that are painted a little bit. Let's see if I'll find one that needs to be painted. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's one of the wands I carved earlier that's ready for paint, and you look real closely right there on the stick. You can see those wood shavings that are still stuck to it. And this is how you know it's being carved from a real stick and not just some hot glue BS. And I try to get all the wood shavings off as best as I can. However, sometimes I miss a few. It doesn't affect the power or the quality, like I said. But when it gets covered in paint and podge, it can look like some of the things that people are saying it looks like, and I want to assure my customers that it's just wood shavings. After taking a bark knife and carving all the bark off of it, and then taking my branch cutters, the small ones that I have, and snipping a point into the end and leaving the bark on the handle just for some texture, and then taking some sandpaper and sanding it smooth and getting rid of all the lines. Sometimes you're going to miss a couple of strains, and if I hold it up to the camera real close, like right there, you can see right there, yeah. This is something I can also do if I want the wands to be a bit smoother, is get rid of those little, this is what they're talking about, this is what I'm talking about. These are the little wood shavings that I miss sometimes when I'm carving the wands for Etsy. And it's better to get them off now than when the paint's on there, because then you got to repaint it if it peels off anything. So I wanted to show my customers that it's not hair, as you can clearly see. It's just the grain of the wood. And, you know, and to be fair, I don't like when I see people on Etsy selling wands made out of hot glue and chopsticks. It's a bit insulting, but they have just as much right to be on there as I do. So I don't personally attack them. I let them do their business and I do mine. So that being said, what gives these goddamn haters the right to attack me just because I have a successful Etsy? You know, the time they spend being jealous of my Etsy, That's time they could be creating their own, trying to sell a product, make something of themselves. The time you spend being jealous of me, that's time you could be bettering yourself as a person. And really, your haters are just your biggest motivators if you think about it. But now that I've done the standard red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, what have you, I need to make a clear wand. And I might just make this one the clear wand because I'm liking the way that green looks. I don't know. I want to pick a wand to make it a clear wand because it's easy enough to make. You just wrap the handle and podge it. This one's got a pretty red bark on it. So that one, like this way waves. That's cool. I can make that long one the roster wand. But I like the way this clear wand waves after sanding all the nubs off of it. It's got kind of a sort of, zigzaggy effect. So once you've carved your wand, if you wanted to add a handle after painting it, just basic leather, it's real easy. Two things. Now, if you want to wrap a handle with leather, you're going to need some clear drying Gorilla Glue, some leather string, and something to cut it with. So in this case, I'll just use my branch cutters. Right now I have a night video I made walking around downtown, messing with the street lights, addressing the rumor that's circulating on my Etsy page. People saying my wands are covered in hair. I'm like, what? What is that? That's, wow. That's ridiculous. Alright. So, oh, shit, almost dropped it, but I caught it. Alright, cool. Alright. So now that we got our wand carved out, let's add a handle to it. And this is the wand I want to make, the clear wand. And look at that. See that? That's a wood shaving right there, if I ever did see one. Before I wrap the handle, let's go ahead and peel that off. Yeah, I see you. Get off of there. And sometimes I don't get the wood shavings off all the way. And like I said, it doesn't hurt the quality or the power of the wand. At least that's how you can tell it's carved out of a real stick and not just some chopstick hot glue mess. Which makes them a bit more authentic, because you can see, all the colors of the grain and the imperfections in the cut of it. So I'm going to take this leather and to start the handle. I'll explain all the steps after I get it tied. It's not going to take too long to explain, and it's pretty simple if you follow the directions. Alright. This won't exactly hurt my business because people are still going to want a wand carved by yours truly. But we're going to take that loop that we just made and we're going to tuck that string underneath so when we pull it down nice and tight, just like that. Got our knot started. I'll hold that in place. And we're going to tie a knot one more time. So tuck it underneath, make another loop right in there, and then tuck that string underneath. that loop. Just, oh, no, get on there, you bastard. Just like that. There we go. Now this will get our wand handle started. So what I'm going to do now with this leather is I'm going to tuck this little piece that we just made right there underneath. And we're going to hold that piece flat to the stick, and we're going to sit here with our roll of leather string, and we're going to wrap it. I'm pulling it as tightly as we can, just holding it tight and pulling it tight. Now that we got it down here, we're going to rewrap it to the opposite direction to kind of give it that effect that we're going for. Again, we want to hold it nice and tight. We don't want these loops coming off while we glue it. This is how you make the wand handles stay. Pretty much. Now that we got it back up here, we're going to wrap it a couple more times around that first knot we made. And kind of get the guard for this wand formed. There we go. Now that we got the handle on, I'll take our roll and roll it up a bit, but not too much. We're going to leave just a little bit exposed. Not that much. You don't need a whole lot at this point. And you just get something to cut it with. I'm going to trim that real quick. Get on there. So I'll get the wands done faster. This wand doesn't take that long because there's no paint. Come on. Slimy, shag, nasty cut. And you can always tear it with your hands. Worst case comes to be, I want to end up doing that. These branch cutters aren't wanting to cooperate. Those are more for cutting wood anyways. There we go, just yank it. Didn't take that. Of course, right there, it broke right where I cut it, so I guess that works just fine. Alright, so now we're going to pull that and leave that little string right there. We're going to loop it around our finger, and to keep it from coming off and coming unraveled. And this is the tricky part. This knot's going to be a lot more difficult than the first two that we made earlier. This is where you want to try to tie another knot at the top with the leather. If you go to unwrap it just a little bit to make that loop come around one more time. And I can remove my finger. There we go. Make that final loop right there and pull it nice and tight. And push that little strand right through the hole one more time. And then pull it as tight as you can. There we go. Now what I'm going to do now is, after putting it on there, I'm kind of stretch out the leather just a bit so it goes down the handle a bit more. Kind of spread it out just a little bit so it's not just all clumped up in one area. And I like the way the natural grain of this looks. That looks pretty. There we go. Now that we got the leather stretched out all across the handle just like that, we're going to put a dab of Gorilla Glue on our final knot right there where that string meets, and pull it tight just to make sure it ain't coming off. Now pretty much after that glue dries, you take some scissors or a knife and you want to snip that excess off up to that dried mountain or dab of glue that you put right there. And this is the glue I use. That way I know for a fact that knot ain't coming undone. And then right after I glue it, if you want to make it nice and shiny, and after you snip the excess off of the leather up to that dab of glue, just cover the entire thing in that Mod Podge and it'll make it nice and shiny. I'll show you which Mod Podge I use here in a second. But first, let's get a dab of glue right there on that knot so it ain't coming undone. I want to set that somewhere to dry so that way it ain't getting messed with. And there's a big difference than just having it blank with nothing. And you take time to wrap it. It's kind of a pain in the ass burgers, but it adds, you know. And this part's going to be a lot flatter than like this part right here, so yeah. The nice thing about this clear drying Gorilla Glue is that it dries clear, so when you're putting like a dab of glue and kind of spreading it around that knot that you just made, that last knot, that's going to hold in place very nicely. Right there you can see the shiny, that's where I put the glue. And you don't need a whole lot, just enough to cover that knot in a complete circle. There we go. And after carving it out with some sandpaper or a bark carving knife and some tree trimmers like the ones you just seen, those exact ones as a matter of fact. Now we're going to let this bitch dry, and when it's done drying, we'll just, like I said, trim the excess off that leather so it's flat with the glue that's dried, and then cover it in Mod Podge, and there you be. The only step that you'd have to change if you wanted to paint it, like I said, is just paint it, let it dry. It just takes longer for the wand to finish if you want to paint it, but yeah. 1 second. Once you're done with the Gorilla Glue, squeeze that air back out kind of like that so it doesn't have that squished air in there. And you want to recap. That's the little shit I'm talking about as I drop the cap into my cup, and that's got to be washed out. Son of a bitch. Now, thankfully, there was no glue in the cap of that, but still, that's the kind of little imperfect bullshit. Over it already. Like, fuck it. It's fucking stupid. In other news, Notre Dame caught fire. Did somebody let Quasimodo play with the lighter again? Oh. Or is God just pissed off at Catholics for molesting children and hating on homosexuals? Have you seen The Last Supper? I don't see any chicks there. Just saying. But before you go off calling me an asshole, hear me out. Jesus had sex with a female prostitute who was of age. So these sick fucks need to realize that sex is not a sin, but the person must be of age and it must be consensual. And you should be safe with it. Simple enough. And if you still have a problem with it, talk to that asshole upstairs, right? No, all political jokes aside, as a bell tower enthusiast, I'm like, oh, that sucks. That's a historical landmark right there. And thankfully no one was hurt, so that I know of. They didn't say anything in the news about people dying, whatever. They just said, Notre Dame is burnt to the ground. And I'm like, oh shit, that sucks. And I picture if it was a temple that I went to practice my belief, what if that had burnt to the ground? That would suck. So for that, I actually feel bad for him, and I hope they can get it repaired as quickly as possible. People think, well, you practice magic, wouldn't you be against that God-loving bullshit? Yes, but that doesn't mean I can't be sympathetic. I mean, what are you going to do when something like that happens? Like, well, shit, that just happened. Like, you're sitting there, you really can't complain when the glue cap comes off. I mean, when it falls into your cup or whatever, it's just, it is what it is. So wash out the other mug, grab a new one, and get over it. That's all you can do, right? I mean, there wasn't really anything in the cap, but just to be on the safe side, fucking rinse it out with some hot water. You should be fine, yeah. Yep, tastes just like water, right? No sense in... That's the kind of little shit that would set me off, like, I don't know why, but, yeah. And it doesn't matter what you're using to carve the stick. If you're using a lathe or a knife or some sandpaper, But that's basically how you make a wand. I mean, pretty straightforward.